I absolutely love garlic. Who doesn't? It's also very easy to grow, but sometimes we can be disappointed by smaller bulbs. Well, today I'm going to share my top tips that will help you to double the size of your bulbs and your harvest. Let's get planting. Growing huge heads of garlic starts with these. Now it feels kind of counterintuitive, planting now while other plants are dying back and the cold weather is setting in, but garlic is incredibly hardy and planting now will give them a head start and up your chances of bigger bulbs. Knowing exactly when to plant is crucial to success, and we'll be looking at timings in a moment. Garlic hates sitting in wet, claggy mud at any time of year, so if you do have poorly drained soil, then growing your garlic in raised beds like this will help to dramatically improve drainage. Also be sure to pick a nice sunny spot, because garlic loves to bask in the sunshine. So I am preparing my beds here by just picking through the soil to remove any vestiges of the last crop as well as any weeds. And now I'm just putting on this beautiful compost. Now this stuff is full of microbial life that will lovingly feed the soil and of course the garlic that is grown in it. I'm also adding this stuff, a broad spectrum organic fertilizer called bloodfish and bone meal. Now what this will do is sort of break down into the soil over the winter months, ready to power up growth come spring. And you know it's going to do good because it doesn't half stink. If you don't want to use animal-derived feeds, then look for a general-purpose organic fertiliser with a slight bias towards potassium. And you can sometimes find onion feeds, which would be absolutely perfect for garlic. Autumn is the best time to plant garlic, but exactly when really matters. Now, in my milder, more temperate climate, I like to plant in late autumn. But if you are in a colder region, then I'd plant a bit sooner in early to mid-autumn. As a very rough rule of thumb, you want to get your garlic into the ground about 3 weeks after your first frost date. Garlic needs a period of cold weather to grow properly, and if they don't get that, we won't get proper bulbs. Now each one of these cloves will grow into a full bulb, and if these little fellas don't get a decent cold spell or vernalization, well, they won't initiate proper bulb formation. Garlic needs around 10 weeks below about 45 degrees Fahrenheit or 7 Celsius. Now if you're in a warm climate, say zone 10 or above, then you're unlikely to get that sort of chilling period. So instead, just pop your garlic bulbs into either a paper bag or a mason jar with lid and place them in the refrigerator for, you guessed it, 10 weeks. This will mimic a decent winter, and once the time is up, you're good to plant. There are also some varieties sold for planting in late winter or spring, which is ideal if you don't have an opportunity to autumn plant. Now, unless it says specifically on the packaging otherwise, I would still give these guys the fridge treatment to set them on their way. Knowing when to plant your garlic will really help you to get the most from your bulbs. Get your garlic to chill and they'll reward you with bigger bulbs. I think we're pretty much ready to plant. I've broken apart my bulbs and separated out the individual cloves, and now I'm just finishing off making my holes. I'm going to be spacing my garlic about 6 inches or 15 centimetres apart in both directions. I like to make all of my holes at once ready to receive my cloves, and they're in nice straight rows. It doesn't half look pleasing. Giving plants plenty of space will help to plump up those big bulbs we're after, and it will also encourage more airflow. Now that's really important to help prevent or reduce the risk of diseases like rust, which can happen later on in the growth cycle to really slow things down. I'm planting the bulbs into holes that are about 5 inches or what's that, 12 to 13 centimetres deep. And that way, when I fill them back over, they will have about 4 inches or 10 centimetres of soil above the top of the clove. Now, you want to get them planted the right way, so pay attention. You want the flat bit here, that's where the roots emerge, facing downwards, and the pointy end, that's that bit here, facing up, because that's where the leaves will emerge from. Getting your cloves in at the correct depth makes a really big difference to the final bulb size. Now at this optimal depth, they're nicely protected from the extreme cold because there's a nice bit of soil sitting above them. Too shallow though, and they'd be less protected, and too deep, and the shoots may struggle to even reach to the surface. Another big predictor behind the final size of your bulb is the starting size of the cloves that you plant. There's a direct correlation. Bigger cloves really will give bigger bulbs, more bulbs for your buck. So if you've got lots of cloves, prioritise the largest ones. Garlic is incredibly hardy, but one thing it really won't tolerate is saturated soil. So if your soil does get really wet over winter, then perhaps a safer bet is to plant your cloves now into deep pots or plug trays. Now get them into the pot as deep as you can, so just a kind of inch or a couple of centimetres of your potting mix. Then pop your clove in and holding it upright, fill it in like that. And that way it's kind of at the right depth when you do pop it out of the pots in spring. Plant them as soon as the soil is workable and no longer wet. And because these won't have the protection of all that soil above them, I would keep them somewhere a bit protected. So somewhere like a greenhouse or just a cold frame would be absolutely fine. Garlic, by the way, makes a fantastic companion plant to so many different crops. And that's because it's very good at warding off many different soft-bodied insect pests like green peach aphid. It would be really great, for example, planted at the bottom of apple or pear trees. And if you'd like to explore other companion plants for garlic, then do take advantage of a free trial of our garden planner, where you can check out the companion planting feature. It's really rather clever. Like so many vegetables, there is a dizzying variety of garlic to choose from, but they can broadly be divided into two categories: soft necks and hard necks. Soft necks tend to be the type of garlic you find in the supermarket. Now these bulbs contain more cloves and they store really well, up to a year in ideal conditions. Soft necks are the one to choose if you are in a warmer climate. Hard necks, on the other hand, have fewer cloves, but they tend to be bigger, and this is the one to go for if you are in a colder climate. They have a strong flavour and pack a pleasingly pungent punch. Now they don't store as long as soft necks, but they will still keep for several months, and as an added bonus, they will produce lovely little curled flowering spikes a few weeks before harvesting, called scapes. These scapes give a welcome bonus crop that can be cut and enjoyed just as you would the cloves, or fried up with other early summer pickings. Now in my climate that's neither very cold nor warm, well, I can grow both types very easily. I'm in zone 8. It doesn't make my job of choosing what to grow very easy though. With my garlic planted, I'm now going to finish everything off with a snug blanket of leaves. Now this isn't strictly necessary in my fairly mild climate, but if you are in a colder climate, it is absolutely necessary, and I would aim for a depth of leaves at least a couple of inches or 5 centimetres deep. Now what this will do is obviously add a little bit of extra insulation from the extreme cold and keep everything underneath the soil there growing and active for a little bit longer. What we want is for the cloves to be producing roots before we hit the worst of winter, getting themselves all anchored in and ready to grow for spring. And you may find that the shoots, just little stubby ones, push through before the really cold weather arrives and then sits in a kind of stasis waiting for spring. Now I don't want these to get scattered by the pigeons or blown away, so I'm just going to kind of anchor them down with bits of sticks and so on until they kind of meld together, which they will eventually with all the rain and so on. Another option just for now is to kind of give them a water to create a bit of weight and kind of push them down into place. We may not be able to see those roots developing, but we know that what's going on underneath here is quite literally laying the groundwork for a stellar season come spring. As spring comes round and temperatures rise, growth will really start to pick up. Now at this point you want to make sure that your beds are maintained weed-free and that you water in dry weather. You want to keep the soil consistently moist as the bulbs start to form. That's really important, but of course never saturated. Stop watering, however, once the bulbs are nearing maturity, and you can tell that by both the size of them and the fact that the leaves will ever so slightly be starting to turn yellow. Just let them mature from this point on. As midsummer approaches, do snip off any flowering stems or scapes that form, perhaps turning them into something delicious like a sumptuously garlicky pesto. Now, even if you don't want to use these scapes, just snip them off anyway, because what that will do is concentrate all of the plant's energy into swelling that beautiful bulb. And how do you know when it's time to harvest? Well, take your cue from the lowest leaves. Once they start to go yellow and withering, well, you know it's time to get in there and harvest. The growth will pretty much be stopping at this point and the bulb won't be swelling anymore. Don't delay harvesting much beyond this point, because the quality of the bulb will start to deteriorate and it won't store for as long. Now, how do I harvest? I get my fork in there underneath the bulb, and while I'm levering about with that, I'm pulling on the foliage above to gently ease the bulb from the soil. Harvesting can be at any point from late spring to late summer, depending on when you planted your cloves and the progress of the season. So just be guided by those visual cues of those leaves turning yellow. Now, once you've harvested your bulbs, don't be tempted to tidy them up. Just bring them indoors out of the rain to start drying off. That could be a sunny windowsill or perhaps hanging up from the greenhouse rafters. Let them dry like this for 2 or 3 weeks and they will store so much better. Once the foliage has completely dried out and turned rustly, I then gather up my garlic and store it as it is in a cool, dark and dry place, where in theory it would keep for several months, but it barely lasts beyond 2 in my garlicky household. Now, if you prefer, you could at this stage trim the foliage down to leave just an inch stump, and then trim the roots, maybe peel off the outer layer of skin and then pack it into sacks or breathable nets to then hang up and store. If you'd like to know more on growing garlic, then I invite you to download the abridged version of my book, where you will find a beautifully photographed step-by-step guide to growing this gourmet bulb, among many other projects. It's yours for free, simply for signing up to our video newsletter. Just scan the QR code or follow the link to grab yours. I'll catch you next time.